Multiple devices එකවර connect කළ හැකි internet like a boss. SLT Mobitel Fiber. Multiple devices එකවර connect කළ හැකි internet like a boss. SLT Mobitel Fiber.
Tonight, smooth sailing. Companies with dollars can get weekly fuel quota, says Minister of Power and Energy as he outlines fuel shipment arrivals for the month of July. Caution. Met Department warns of heavy showers of about 100 millimeters and gusty winds over 50 to 60 kilometers per hour after sea waves wash inland. Not so fast. FAO representative says Sri Lanka should make the transition to green economy, but be mindful of the scientific timeline needed. Appraisals and achievements. Sri Lanka's Yupo Nabekon sets South Asia record in Switzerland, securing safe passage to World Athletics Championship, while Australia cricket CEO appreciates Sri Lankan hospitality.
Sri Lanka's got a wonderful reputation in Australia as a must-see destination.
All this and much more coming up tonight on First at 9, this Sunday, the 3rd of July 2022.
නව ලයිෆ් බොයි කොහොම ස්වභාවික කොහොම සාරයෙන් සමග හානිකර පැරබන් රහිතයි.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to AdaDerana 24's English News. I am Andrew Bernard. Now, the Ministry of Power and Energy gave an optimistic outlook on the country's fuel procurement plan for the coming month today. Minister of Energy and Power Kanchana Wijesekara said today that shipments of petrol and diesel are expected to arrive on the 8th or 9th and between the 11th and 17th and on the 22nd and 23rd of July. Further, the minister said that companies able to afford to make payments in dollars could open consumer accounts with the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation and obtain a weekly guaranteed quota of fuel from the 12th of July onwards. Among Sri Lanka's only two fuel distributors, Lanka IOC holds a market share of 35% and is currently the only distributor of fuel to the general public, subject to a fuel cap. With this being the case, Lanka IOC has requested state-owned Ceylon Petroleum Corporation to provide 10 of its bowsers so that it could further enhance distribution, to which the CPETCO has agreed. At the moment, CPETCO has 4,050 metric tons of petrol, 13,100 metric tons of diesel, 29,000 metric tons of furnace oil required for power generation, and 500 metric tons of aviation fuel. The Ministry of Power announced today that two shipments of 40,000 metric tons of diesel are expected to arrive on the 8th or 9th of July and between the 11th and 14th of July. Further, the ministry stated that discussions have been carried out with India with regard to procuring a shipment of fuel between the 22nd and 23rd of July. A shipment of petrol, meanwhile, is expected to arrive in the country on the 22nd or 23rd of July. The Ministry of Power and Energy also stated that 135,000 metric tons of crude oil required for the Sapugaskanda oil refinery is expected to arrive on the 15th of July and another on the 12th of August. In the meantime, Lanka IOC has planned to bring a vessel of 18,000 metric tons of petrol and 12,000 metric tons of diesel to Sri Lanka on the 13th and the 14th of July, and a ship of 5,000 metric tons of petrol and 24,000 metric tons of diesel between the 30th and 31st of July. Another 29,000 metric tons of diesel is scheduled to reach the island between the 10th and 15th of August. Speaking during a media briefing today, Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara said that measures are being sourced to get the necessary dollars needed to get down a shipment of petrol from a Malaysian firm known as Petronas Global.
විශේෂයෙන්ම මැලේසියාවේ පෙට්‍රෝනාස් සමාගමත් එක්ක සාකච්ඡා කරා සුබවාදී පිළිතුරු අපිට ලැබිලා තියෙනවා. ඔවුන් අපිට තහවුරු කරලා තිබෙනවා මෙට්‍රික් ටොන් 50000ක පෙට්‍රල් නෞකාවක් සහ මෙට්‍රික් ටොන් 10000ක භූමිතෙල් මේ නෞකාව ලබා ගැනීමේ කටයුතු අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ 10 වෙනිදා හෝ 11 වෙනිදා කියන දින දෙක ඇතුළත තුල ඒ පෙට්‍රල් නෞකාව ලබා ගැනීමේ කටයුතු කරන්න. මේ පෙට්‍රල් නෞකාව යම් කිසි හේතුවකට 10 හෝ 11 පැමිණෙන්නේ නැත්නම් 10 11 කියන දින දෙක තුල ලබාගත හැකි වෙන වෙනත් විකල්ප වෙනුවෙන් අපි මේ වෙලාවේ සාකච්ඡා කරනවා. ඉන්දියට අමතරව තව අලුත් සැපයුම්කරුවන් 30 දෙනෙක් සඳහා ඇනෝම් ලබා දීලා තියෙනවා. මට තාම තියෙනවා අභියෝගයක් මේ මුදල් සොයා ගැනීම වෙනුවෙන්. අපිට මුදල් මහා බැංකුවෙන් සහ බැංකු පද්ධතිය තුලින් සොයා ගන්න බැරි නම් වෙනත් විකල්ප වලට අපිට යන්න වෙයි මුදල් සොයා ගැනීම සඳහා. නමුත් අපි දන්නේ දේශීය වෙළඳපොලේ හෝ ජාත්‍යන්තර වෙළඳපොලේ ඩොලර් ලබා ගැනීම සඳහා අපිට 367 කියන මුදලටම ගන්න පුළුවන් වෙයිද කියලා. ඒස අපි අනුමැතියකුත් ඉල්ලනවා කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලයෙන් යම් කිසි ආකාරයක අපනයන කරුවන් ළඟ හෝ එහෙම නැත්නම් ජාත්‍යන්තර වශයෙන් තියෙන බැංකුවක ඩොලර් ලබා ගැනීම සඳහා ඒ අගය වෙනස් වුණොත් ඒක ලබා ගැනීම සඳහා අපි අනුමැතියක් ඉල්ලලා තියෙනවා. අපි උත්සාහ කරා ණයවර ලිපි විවෘත කරන්න සම්පූර්ණ මුදල තැන්පත් කළ ණයවර ලිපි විවෘත කරන්න උත්සාහ කරත් ජාත්‍යන්තර බැංකු ජාත්‍යන්තර මූල්‍ය ආයතන අපේ බැංකු පද්ධතිය තුල මේ තිබෙන අවිනිශ්චිතතාවය සහ මේ කඩාවැටීම නිසා අපිට ණයවර ලිපි වලට අවශ්‍ය අනුමැතිය ලබා දෙන්නේ නැහැ.
Further, taking to Twitter, the minister said that any company or industry that can pay in US dollars can open a consumer account at the CPC to obtain a weekly guaranteed quota of fuel. He said that they need to make the payments in advance and that the fuel will be issued on a daily or weekly basis from the 12th of July and that customers have already made payments will receive their quota from the 12th onwards. In other developments, a tense situation was reported at the Inamaluwa IOCID filling station in Dambulla last night after people waiting in queues alleged that even though the station stopped issuing fuel, claiming that the stocks are over, the station had fuel beyond its reserve capacity.
තෙල් නැත්තම් කිසි කේසයක් නැහැ. අපි මෙතන මේ ඔක්කොම එකයි යනවා.
Due to tensions, the Sigiri police was dispatched to the area to disperse the crowd as it led to severe traffic congestion along the Dambulla-Havarana main road. Police proceeded to arrest 5 people who had behaved in an unruly manner yesterday. Meanwhile, another tense situation was reported at the Godagama IOC refilling station between the people that waited in queues for fuel and the army personnel at the station. The reason for the tensions, according to our correspondent, was army personnel refusing to show the list of people to whom tokens were issued, as people waiting in queues alleged that the army personnel had issued tokens to those who were not in queue. Now, the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka announced for the schedule of power interruptions for the 4th and the 5th of July. As such, groups A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W will experience total power interruptions of 3 hours tomorrow and the day after. Households in these groups will experience power cuts of 1 hour and 40 minutes during the day and 1 hour and 20 minutes during the night. Meanwhile, groups M, N, O, X, Y and Z will experience 3-hour power cuts between 5:30 am and 8:30 am. The Colombo City commercial zones will meanwhile undergo power cuts of 2 hours and 30 minutes between 6 am and 8:30 am. All government and government-approved private schools across the country will remain closed from tomorrow until the 8th of July. According to the Ministry of Education, the missed school days are expected to be covered by reducing the school term holidays. This decision was made by the Ministry of Education after taking into consideration the ongoing fuel crisis in the country. Now, meanwhile, the Minister of Justice, Prison and Constitutional Reforms, Dr. Vijaydas Rajapaksa, says that the 22nd Amendment was presented in order to establish political stability in the country, which will assist the government in securing international support to overcome the economic crisis. His views came in a backdrop where Sri Lanka Freedom Party Chairman Maithripala Sirisena claimed that the 22nd Amendment is strengthening the powers of the incumbent President Gotabaya Rajapaksa.
අපට දැනගන්න තිබෙන්නේ වර්තමාන ජනාධිපතිතුමාගේ නිල කාලය තිබෙන තෙක් එතුමාට විධායක ජනාධිපතිවරයා විදිහට තවත් බලතල වැඩි කරමින් ඒ තනතුර ශක්තිමත් කිරීමක් මේ 21 වන සංශෝධනයෙන් කරලා තියෙනවායි කියලා. ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂය කොහොම දැඩි ලෙස සටන් කරනවා 21 වෙන ව්‍යවස්ථාව 19 වෙන සංශෝධනයට සමානව ගෙනීමටත් ජනාධිපතිවරයාගේ බලතල එතුමා බලයේ සිටින තාක්කල් තිබෙනමාටත් වඩා ලබා දීමක් කියන කරුණු සම්බන්ධයෙන් අපි දැඩි විරෝධතා ව්‍යාපාරයක් රට පුරා ගෙනියනවා.
ඉදිරියේ 21 වන සංශෝධනය නිවැරදිව ගේන්න නැත්නම් ඒකට විරුද්ධව අපි දැවැන්ත උද්ඝෝෂණ ව්‍යාපාරයට යන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා.
අධිකරණයට යන කතාවක්
ඔව් අධිකරණයට අපි අනිවාර්යයෙන් යනවා මේ සියලු කරුණු සම්බන්ධව.
Meanwhile, speaking at a media briefing today, Minister of Justice, Prisons and Constitutional Reforms, Dr. Vijaydas Rajapaksa said that the intention of introducing the 22nd Amendment is to achieve political stability, which is requested by most of the international agencies assisting Sri Lanka.
22 ආණ්ඩුක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථා සංශෝධනය හරහා කිසිදු පුද්ගලයෙක් ආරක්ෂා කරන්න කිසිදු පවුලක් ආරක්ෂා කරන්න කිසිම සැලැස්මක් අපිට නෑ වගේම අපිට උමනාවකුත් නෑ. මේ හරහා අපි රට ආරක්ෂා කරන්න තමයි සියලු කටයුතු කරලා තියෙන්නේ. 22 වෙනි කෙටුම්පත ඉදිරිපත් කරේ සියලුම දේශපාලන පක්ෂවල එකඟතාවය පළ කලාට පස්සේ තමයි අනුමත කරේ. ඒ අනුව තමයි අපි මේ පනත් කෙටුම්පත 22 වෙනි ආණ්ඩුක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථා සංශෝධන පනත් කෙටුම්පත විදියට ඉදිරිපත් කරලා තියෙනවා. එය මේ වන විට ගැසට් පත්‍රය පළ කරලා තියෙනවා. විපක්ෂය ඉදිරිපත් කරපු වගන්ති 60 ගානකින් යුක්ත විෂයන් 8ක් අලලා ඉදිරිපත් කරපු සංශෝධනයේ එක වචනයක්වත් ජනමත විචාරණයක් නැතුව සම්මත කරන්න බෑ කියලා ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨාධිකරණය තීන්දුව කරා. ඒක නිසා ඒක නිෂ්ඵල ක්‍රියාවලියක් බවට පත් වෙලා තියෙනවා. දැන් මම ඉදිරිපත් කරලා තියෙන ව්‍යවස්ථා සංශෝධන කෙටුම්පතෙන් අපි උත්සාහ කරන්නේ ජනමත විචාරණයකින් තොරව මේ කටයුත්ත කරන්න පුළුවන් ආකාරයට. ඒ වගේම කිසිදු මහජන නියෝජිතයෙකුට විරුද්ධ වෙන්න බැරි විදියට තමයි මේක අපි ඉදිරිපත් කරලා තියෙන්නේ. විරුද්ධ වෙන්න පුළුවන්. හැබැයි හෘද සාක්ෂිය දන්නවා මේ පනත් කෙටුම්පතට විරුද්ධ වෙනවයි කියන්නේ ජනතා අභිලාෂයට පයින් ගහනවයි කියන එක. ජාත්‍යන්තර මූල්‍ය අරමුදල මේ දිනවල ආර්ථික අර්බුදය විසඳන්න සාකච්ඡා පවත්වනවා. යුරෝපන් සංගමය මේ පිළිබඳව සාකච්ඡා පවත්වනවා. ඇමරිකා එක්සත් ජනපදය, ඉන්දියාව, ජපානය, ඕස්ට්‍රේලියාව මේ ඔක්කොම මේ පිළිබඳව අපිත් එක්ක සාකච්ඡා කරනවා. අපේ මිතුරු රටවල් විදියට කටයුතු කරන ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදී රටවල් සහ සංවිධාන එක්සත් ජාතීන්ගේ සංවිධානය ඇතුළු ජාත්‍යන්තර මූල්‍ය අරමුදල ලෝක බැංකුව ඇතුළු සෑම ආයතනයක්ම අපිට ඉදිරිපත් කරපු කොන්දේසියක් තියෙනවා. කොන්දේසිය තමයි ආධාර උපකාර ගන්න ඕන නම් රටේ ආර්ථික ප්‍රශ්නය විසඳ ගැනීම සඳහා ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ සහාය අවශ්‍ය නම් මේ රටේ නීති ආධිපත්‍ය ස්ථාපිත කරලා පෙන්වන්න ඔප්පු කරන්න කියලා. ඒක කරනකම් අපිට උදව් උපකාර ගැනීම අසීරු කාරණයක් බවට පත් වෙලා තියෙනවා. මහ බැංකුවේ අධිපතිතුමා කියනවා මට ආර්ථික අර්බුදය විසඳන්න කටයුතු කරන්න නම් දේශපාලන අර්බුදය විසඳලා දෙන්න. එමනම් ඒ දේශපාලන අර්බුදය විසඳන්න තමයි මේ ඉදිරිපත් කරලා තියෙන්නේ.
There seems to be confusion as to whether the 21st and 22nd amendments to the Constitution are two different amendments or the same. The 21st Amendment was the amendment to the Constitution presented by the opposition Samagi Janabalawegya in April as a private bill to the Parliament. The amendment was later gazetted and it was challenged at the Supreme Court. Dr. Vijaydas Rajapaksa, who became the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Reforms, presented a government bill to the Cabinet in his ministerial capacity, which is the 22nd Amendment. Later, the Supreme Court delivered their decision that the 21st Amendment of the SJB cannot proceed further without a public referendum. In such a backdrop, the Cabinet approved the gazetting of the 22nd Amendment brought forward by the Justice Minister. Once the 22nd Amendment is passed in Parliament, it becomes the 21st Amendment, as SJB's amendment won't proceed further. Now it's Sri Lanka currently experiencing the southwest monsoon conditions. Several incidents of coastline flooding were reported yesterday between the seas from Puttalam and Pothuwil. As a result of the strong sea waves, 2 lives were lost. The Department of Meteorology meanwhile says that while rainfall above 100 millimeters may occur in the areas of the Sabaragama province and in Kandy, Nuwara, Galle and the Mathura districts. During the past days, seas extending from Puttalam to Pothuwil via Galle displayed a rough nature due to the effects of the southwest monsoon, which Sri Lanka is currently experiencing. As a result, several incidents of coastline inundation, the phenomenon in which seawater rises high enough that it floods inland, were also reported from several areas between the areas of Puttalam and Pothuwil yesterday. In the Galle district, the Colombo-Galle road was inundated by sea waves from the area of Kahava in Hikkadua, which led to the closure of the road for a few hours. Samudra Road in Galle meanwhile was covered with sand after sea waves washed inland. In the meantime, the Samudra Piyavara walking path located in the Galle-Mathura main road was also subject to serious damages in an incident of a coastal inundation. At the Galle fishing harbour, 5 fishing boats anchored were submerged following the strong sea waves that reached the land. Incidents of fatalities meanwhile were also reported where 3 youth who were swimming in the Sitagala natural seawater pool in Gandhara in Mathura were swept away to sea. Area residents managed to save 2 of them, however 1 remains missing. In Vattala, a woman who was at the Usvatikeyava beach was also swept away by the strong currents. As for other weather updates, the Department of Meteorology issued a weather advisory today stating that rainfall above 100 mm may occur in areas of Sabaragamuwa province and in the Kandy, Nuwara, Galle and Mathura districts. Strong winds of about 50 to 60 km per hour are expected over the western slopes of the central hills, western and southern provinces due to the active southwest monsoon condition. More news on the other side of this break. Stay with us.
Big 3.
Welcome back. Now, the country representative of the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, Vimlendra Sharan, believes that Sri Lanka must look towards sustainable agriculture, but within a scientific timeline. The FAO representative in Sri Lanka said that the country should aim for around 12 years to make the transition and in the interim develop policy allowing imports to make up for the decline in the production when transforming into a green economy. Vimlendra Sharan was speaking to Indivari Amawatta on our current affairs program at Hyde Park.
But since you came in, what was your analysis of Sri Lanka going forward in June?
The decision to ban chemical fertilizers and insecticides had already been taken when I arrived here. And I was absolutely clear that it was not evidence-based scientific decision. There's nothing wrong as a vision in going organic, but there's a process to it. That process can't be short-circuited. It appeared that the government desired to go green, go organic overnight, which in turn led to a major crisis with the farmers. Non-availability of chemical fertilizers, non-availability of pesticides, herbicides. It has seen to a massive dip in production in Maha of 22. Our advice to the government was not that do not try this. Our advice was do not do it overnight. Do not ban everything overnight. There is a timeline which needs to be followed. There is a science to it.
What is the scientific evidence-based recommendation of the timing for this transition?
It would take nearly 10 to 12 years. Remember that any policy will have a trade-off, including policy to go green. The trade-off here is food security. So while you're going green, are you taking adequate steps to ensure that people get what they need in terms of food? That seems to have been a mismatch in Sri Lanka. What happens when the whole country is going organic and the production goes down? You have to have some policy in place, or you have to have a system in place to ensure that adequate food is available. One answer is that while the production dips as you transition from inorganic to organic, you can import more. Did you have enough foreign exchange in place to import what you needed? Now, as it has shown over the last 2, 3, 4 months, no, we did not. So there is a shortage, there is a crisis, because we went organic in a fashion which was not the scientific way to go about things.
Agriculture could be an industry that could attract investments, but does the FAO have an understanding or an observation on what areas and how Sri Lanka can immediately attract investments?
We have a very vibrant program for partnership with private sector, and when we look at private sector, we don't look only in terms of the money that they bring. Private sector across the globe is full of rich experience. They are full of expertise, they are full of innovation, they are full of technology, full of science. And those are also areas which we really need to tap into. So it has to be a very holistic exercise, and with private sector, and that's been we have to bring them as a partner. Agriculture is business. And I would not want private sector's entry into agriculture if I'm looking at a long-term partnership in terms of philanthropy or their corporate social responsibility, because that can only touch the surface. If you want to integrate private sector into any country's agriculture, you have to ensure that it works as a business. The returns must be there. It cannot be on a philanthropic basis. It should not be on a philanthropic basis, because then the private sector is here today, it's out tomorrow. We have to bring in private players where returns to the sector and the complete value chain has to be there. So there are so many areas in which private sectors can come in, and there are excellent private sector players in the agriculture sector who can help countries grow. So we have to look at private sector with a lens of being equal partners.
Now, a search operation carried out by the Navy in the eastern seas of Sri Lanka this morning led to the seizure of a local multi-day fishing trawler carrying 51 individuals suspected to have been on an attempt to migrate illegally by sea route. The fishing trawler carrying the suspects were intercepted by the Eastern Naval Command during an operation in the seas off Trincomalee. The apprehended individuals included 4 men, of which 6 were involved in the racket, 5 women and 5 children who are area residents of Jaffna, Vaunia, Trincomalee, Bariklo, Ampara, Gambha and Ratnapura. They have been handed over to the Trincomalee Harbour Police for legal proceedings. Meanwhile, a coordinated operation mounted by the Navy, the Sri Lanka Coast Guard and the police in Maravilla yesterday made way to the apprehension of 24 individuals suspected to be illegal immigrants. The suspects are residents of Batiklo, Walachennai and Chilau. Now in your sports news, Sri Lanka's Yupun Abekun won the men's 100 meters event at the Respisident International 2022 with a 9.96 second run in Switzerland. He became the first South Asian to register a time below 10 seconds in the 100 meters race. Yupun Abekun also recorded the 3rd fastest time by an Asian. He renewed the national and South Asian record for the event of 10.6 seconds set in late May. Earlier in the day, Abekun finished first in his heat with a time of 10.1 seconds to go through to the final. Abekun is set to compete in the 100 men's meters race at the World Athletic Championship set to begin on the 15th of July in Oregon in United States, followed by the Commonwealth Games. Now, the Australian cricket team accepted a full tour of Sri Lanka during a crisis-hit period, giving a message to the whole world that Sri Lanka is safe to travel. Chief Executive Officer of Cricket Australia, Nick Hockley, says that the wonderful atmosphere in Sri Lanka is heartwarming and appreciated all those who looked after the team well in Sri Lanka. Speaking during AdaDerana 24 sports program Straight Drive, Hockley said that Sri Lanka has got a wonderful reputation in Australia as a must-see destination.
There were questions raised about the very ethicalness of the tour and whether it should actually happen. How tough was it for Cricket Australia to make that decision?
Really the main thing was, as long as we knew that it was safe to tour and it was appropriate to tour, we wanted to be here. And I think the spirit in which the series has been played, I think you've seen it on the faces of both sets of players. And I was in Australia at the time of the 5th ODI, and I woke up in the middle of the night, put on the TV. I thought I was watching an Australian home game. It was quite incredible, and I know the players have been really quite overwhelmed by the reception they've received, and we're just extremely appreciative to everybody here in Sri Lanka. It was just the most incredible vindication and really a demonstration of the spirit of cricket, the power of sport to bring people together. And I can tell you the coverage of that match and the pictures, the wonderful images of people dressed up with signs saying "Thank you Australia," they were on all over the newspapers in Australia. So it's made a really a great impression.
We speak about economical issues in the country, but still to have sellout crowds.
I think it's wonderful, and it's something that we're thinking about in Australia because we've had 2 years of the pandemic, and it's just so heartwarming to see that actually people want to come and be together. They want to be with friends. They want to feel the atmosphere. You know, I think I probably speak for cricket administrators and cricket fans all around the world to see such passionate, knowledgeable crowds. I was very struck by, the little kids, families, girls, boys, just a wonderful atmosphere, and to see that was really heartwarming. So I know on behalf of the Australian team and on behalf of everyone in Australia, just a huge thank you to everyone who turned out to support those series.
How do you find the hospitality of Sri Lanka?
Just the warmth, incredibly warm welcome, just a real genuine wanting to get to know, to make sure that we're well looked after. I think that I've spoken to members of the team this morning over breakfast, and they just said, we couldn't have been better looked after. And we're extremely appreciative of that, and we'll have an opportunity, I hope, to reciprocate later this year with the men's T20 World Cup. So we'd love to see as many cricket fans come across to watch Sri Lanka compete in the T20 World Cup. And I'm not saying that the hospitality will be at the same level. We'll do our very best. We'll do our very best to reciprocate.
Would you, on a personal note, recommend Sri Lanka, and would you encourage people of your country to come and visit it?
So I would love to come, bring my family. We're here. You can hear the ocean outside. I think the cricket stadium here in Galle has to be one of the most picturesque in the world, and we would certainly love to come back. And I think Sri Lanka's got a wonderful reputation in Australia as a must-see destination, and I hope that this tour has encouraged or inspired a few more people to come and visit. So I'll certainly be back. I'd just like to say an enormous thank you for the incredible welcome, for the overwhelming gestures, really two of them. One, to support the Australian team like you did at that 5th ODI, and then to recognise Shane Warne.
That's all from us here at First and 9. Have a pleasant evening. Good night.